Hello, students and the Radio Service audience. I'm Dr. Gakwenzire, a PhD holder in history and lecturer in the University of Rwanda College of Education. I'm a member of the team who are going to give you the lectures related to citizenship and this Radio Salus. My colleague Janvier Moulins introduced to you the module of citizenship and the transformative education as designed by the University of Rwanda for all the first-year students and interesting to all Salus radio audience. So everybody is invited to follow this interesting module, of course. He also explained the reason behind the teaching of this module of citizenship and transformative education. And about this, I'm not going to emphasize on this, but let's recall that this module is divided into 4 units, namely civic education, integrity systems, human rights, and peace education. The first unit, which of civic education, it consists of 4 parts that are citizenship, state building, national identity, and the overview of the history of Rwanda in a connection with citizenship, state building, and national identity. And it is very important to mention and to note these 4 parts of this unit. Each subunit is presented by lecturers, of course, in a teamwork with his colleagues. The first unit is developed by Janvier Moulins. Now I'm taking over with the subunit related to national unit, while Dr. Raphael Nkaka will present to you an overview of the history of Rwanda in a connection with the citizenship, state building, and the national identity. I would like to make a particular message to students of this first year. Dear students, you are already informed that above this radio presentation, you can find your class materials and the UR e-learning platform. Keep also in mind that at the end of every unit, you are required to produce a reflective report that will be marked and graded. You know that the evaluation is very important in the relation between a lecturer and a student. Therefore, you are expected to follow these lecturers attentively, take notes, and more self-study through further readings and the subject. As I said, the lecture of today is about national identity. National identity is one of the concepts which historians have borrowed from the social sciences and then used for their own purposes. The origins of the concept of identity is situated in 1950s and has psychological and sociological meanings that needed to be clarified. So, in 1950s is a period, an era of development of different sciences in the social domain and humanities. Here we can give some examples like ecology, etc. National identity is connected to several concepts that must be defined. And we are going to explain in a global some concepts related to national identity. And we will have to define at least 3 important concepts to understand in a global what is national identity. So first, what must we know about the concept of identity? This is the first concept to explain, not to explain define, to describe, and also to present its historical evolution in terms of epistemology. Identity is a socially and historically constructed concept. The concepts are constructed from the scholars, from the schools. Anybody learns about his or his own identity and the identity of the others through interactions with the family, organizations, institutions, media, and the other connections he or she makes in her everyday life. Key facets of identity like gender, social classes, age, race, and ethnicity, religion, etc., play significant roles in determining how people understand and experience the world, as well as shaping the types of opportunity and challenges that they face. Social and cultural identity is linked to issues of power, value system, and ideology. As we are speaking about identity, we will come often to what is the ideology. Identity can be understood in single terms, like I can say I'm a male or a female, but also as multiple and intersecting parts of being northern, southern. I can say I come from north, south, etc. Most importantly, this is very important and mention it, these questions really to consider the meaning of identity. Beyond who I am, these questions from our individual identity in a broader social historical context. That is what I am, but socially speaking, what I have to become. And of course, this is in relation with other groups. Somebody can be defined according to the others. Parts of understanding our identity, therefore, means understanding how we fit in or we don't with other groups of people. For example, you can go somewhere in a Western country, somebody will see you as African, but he can appoint, even if you are African, I'm sure that you are not, for example, a Zambian, you are not a South African. I'm seeing you as a Rwandan. So this exclusion, inclusion define somebody for his social identity. When we think about identity, we may focus on cultural markers like clothing or biological or physiological markers as skin color. However, it is also important to understand that our identities are comprised of shared ideas, ideologies, biases, and ways of seeing the world around you. Your identity, therefore, are socially constructed, and our biological attributes are only one part of who we are. And we will see that the biological part is somehow less important than the construction of the identity, socially speaking. But where do these shared values or ideologies come from? Again, the answer is not clear cut. In many cases, we learned and internalize these values over the courses of our lives from families, from peers, from role models, for example, for the young people, from school, as we are here, from organizations, from government, etc. The media also plays a prominent role in creating the meaning, shaping our values, defining who we are, and establishing norms. Norms also are important in the formation of identities. These values are powerful because they generally come from places of power, but also because we internalize them and take them from granted. They seem natural and the way things should be, and in turn shape the way we see and understand the people, objects, practices, and institutions in our lives. You know, for everything, there is exercise. If we were introduced in a social group, after a long time, the people will see it as a natural phenomenon, whereas it is from just a social creation. Here I can give the example of Rwandans with some social components or identity, what we call, for example, to ethnic, and the people will think that it is a natural creation, whereas the social creation has a very important contribution. After the explanation about the identity, now we can see what is a nation. And once again, we are going to be beyond the definition, just even to present the historical evolution of this concept. And of course, it's very important as we are speaking about national identity. So what is a national identity? And in this case, we are going to, once again, I emphasize on this, to understand what is a nation. Barrett and Davies, two scholars, defined the concept of a nation as a named human community that occupies its historic homeland, has a shared history, a common mass public culture, myth of common ancestry, shared symbols, traditions, and customs, and demonstrates self-awareness as a nation. You know, even the myths are very important for the nation. If you hear the myth of Gihanga, please go in deep and try to understand its meaning in the consolidation, formation of the nation of Rwanda. Usually, nations also have a common language, economy, a judicial system. A nation is an imagined community. Imagine the community, which means the national cohesiveness is not based on direct personal contact between its members. Rather, the nation is based on a subjective sense of common identity and a sense of belonging. I give the example of Gihanga, and I would like to make some comments on this also. Somebody can ask you if Gihanga is a historical figure. The date of birth of Gihanga. This is imagined personality, but at the end is taken as the founder of our nation, and we believe in it. It belongs to us. So the nation is conceptually close to two other large social groups. As I said, the first one is the ethnos, or the ethnic group, and the second is the state. When you speak about the nation, you have somehow to think also about the ethnic group or to the state. Like nations, ethnic groups share a common language, a myth of common ancestry, symbols, traditions, and customs. However, what about the ethnic group? The ethnic groups usually lack a common territory, a shared economy, a system of mass communication, and legislation. Generally, you will never find a common communication or legislation about any ethnic group. So what about the state? The term state is used to refer to a sovereign political entity in which a government uses a set of institutions to exercise an administrative monopoly over the territory, which has clearly demarcated borders, where the rule of that government is sanctioned by law, and where that government has the capacity of forcefully uphold its administrative policies. It means that different to the ethnic group and nations, the state will have a power to respect any policy, any law, in directive given to the members of the nation. Using this terminology enables distinguish between stateless nations. You have to understand well, stateless nations, and for stateless nations, we can give some examples. The Quebecois, the Scots, the Basque, they are nations without states. And we have also to understand what is nation states, the contrary of stateless nations. And here we have a good example. The one is Rwanda, Germany, Japan, and other state nations that you may know. And there are also multinational states, which means that in one state there are several nations, like Canada, Britain, Spain, and others. Many stateless nations actually had a state, and at some point in their history, but lost it and it became a part of a larger nation. Most states in the world are mid-ethnic, but not mid-national. Numerous ethnic groups live in their territory. However, they lack geographic national boundaries and other important features in the nation. Some ethnic groups in different countries in the world have been struggling for their recognition as nations. And here you can find yourself some examples like Native Americans in the USA. Another well-known example is the Palestinians in Israel, and of course the Kurds in Iraq, Iran, and Turkey. Another important question to understand: how can we become a member of this nation? You should find two ways to become a member of a nation. Membership in a particular nation may be defined upon the two dimensions representing two approaches. The first one is the ethnic genealogical dimension, representing the Primordial Approach, and the civic territorial dimension, representing the instrumental approach. And now we are going to try to explain the two approaches or the two dimensions. The primordial approach most likely developed in countries with federal economies and a strong totalitarian rule, such as Germany, Spain, Russia, and the countries in Southern and Eastern Europe at the beginning of the 20th century, because I precise the date because things involved as quick. This views as the nation as a timeless natural entity that gradually evolved from prehistoric times. Membership in the nation is considered to be stable and dependent on lineage, language, religion, customs, and folklore. The main means of membership in this nation is through descent or ancestry. The primordial approach considered membership in a nation as based on inherent visible signs such as facial appearance, skin color, and clothing, as well as religious rituals. And what is the difference between this way of becoming a member of a nation, which means ethnic genealogical dimension, and the second one? The second way of becoming a member of a nation is the instrumental or civic territorial approach to defining the concept of a nation, and is first developed in 18th century in countries with a strong bourgeoisie and before federal system. And here I would like to emphasize on a bourgeoisie, which means industry system and liberalization. So this society is well an established tradition of liberalism and decentralized rule, such as Great Britain, France, the United States of America, Switzerland, and the Netherlands. These examples of countries in that period were different of the system of economic production of the previous country. I use as an example like Spain, Russia, and a part of the Europe in the south and the east. Well, this is set of bourgeoisie. The key point of the new ideology was the notion that every person, irrespective of religion, ethnic, or class background, could freely join the nation as long as he or she saw allegiance to a set of political principles and institutions representing the nation's values and objectives. And for the new political principles, it is also important to understand allegiance and loyalty. The important is to respect the way the country is directed, not necessarily where you come from which family, etc. The common national culture in these political principles is based not on genealogical commodities, but on shared components of political culture, such as the rights and obligations of each citizen. Therefore, according to the instrumental approach, this approach that we are explaining, membership in nation is based almost exclusively on juridical definitions of citizenship. The acquired behavioral characteristics such as citizenship, language, voting behavior, adherence to specific values, the services to the country became the primary indicators of membership in the nation. And as we came to explain what is the nation in the previously, we explain what is identity, what will become the combination of the two. You know that this part is around national identity. So what is a national identity? And explaining this concept, we will try to go in deep even to understand how can we measure a national identity. The national identity can be measured, and we will see also the behavior, things, and attitudes affected by national identity. So what we understand about this combination of national identity, of nation and identity, which became a national identity. National identity may be defined as a state of cognitions, the knowledge and emotions, both the two, that express an individual's relationship with a nation. National identity is a subjective construction, not objective construction, differing from the concept of nationality, which is an objective marker of an individual's belonging to a nation. Nationality is usually perceived by the nation through official registration and ensuring relevant documents. In order to know if you have any nationality, you have to present your ID, your national identity. But for presenting yourself as a member of a nation, it is quite different. So, national identity is a complex concept that includes the following components. And here, we are going to give at least some components. Now, we have at least 7 examples. The first is a subjective conviction, also called self-categorization, as to which nation one belongs. A strong sense of national affiliation as a part of the individual identity, emotions, positive or negative, towards the nation, stereotypes about the typical characteristics and trends of people belonging either to their own national group or to other national groups. Stereotypes, as we will explain even after this, are very important to qualify somebody as a member of a nation. There is also a subjective experience of inclusiveness and the perception of oneself as similar to another group member along important group defining characteristics. We have also subjective opinions regarding the current aims and problems of the nation. You have to attribute yourself the problem that a nation can have to you, of course, in order to find a solution. Knowledge of and a willingness of internalize the national culture and the values and to follow national behavioral nations. So we understand that you cannot say, I'm a member of this nation without having any knowledge about its culture, its values, etc. So you have to have at least knowledge and at least willingness. If you have no willingness, you cannot feel yourself as a member of a nation. national identity is a social construct. Therefore, it may change depending on the social circumstances. Most people express some degree of national identity, and this is why we will give some tools of measuring the national identity. Most people express some degree of national identity. However, its expression increases in situations where your belonging to a nation becomes particularly silent, such as during international sports events, and when there is a potential threat to one's national identity, such as during a cross-cultural encounter. For example, when there is a sports competition, there is the degree of national identity increases. Ishyaka ry'igihugu. Also, most people have a single national identity, either by birth or by choice. Belonging to multiple nations may have a separate national identities that relate to each of these nations. For example, people whose parents come from different nations, as well as first and second generations of immigrants, may have multiple national identity. Now, as I said, there are some tools to measure the national identity. The most frequently studied components of national identity include identification with the nation, attitude towards the nation, and the national stereotypes. Stereotypes, as I said before, are very important to measure the national identity. These components of national identity are measured using Likert tape scale. So, Likert tape scale is a psychometric scale commonly involved in research that employs questionnaires. It is the most widely used approach to scaling responses in survey research, such as the term, or more accurately, the Likert type, is often used interchangeably with rating scale. Also, there are other types of rating scale. So this scale, it is used to measure the responses given by somebody to evaluate how accurately the scale items reflect their thoughts and feelings. And here, there's a question of thoughts that everybody can give, but on the other hand, there are also the feelings. So the identification with the nation reflects the degree to which the component of national identity figures in the overall identity of an individual. Of course, you are individual, but at the same time, you are a member of a given nation. For example, according to some research, a scale is comprised of the following 4 items. The first item being of this nationality is an important part of my self-definition. Do you define yourself according to the nationality? Is it important for you? Second item, when I talk about this nation, I say we, not they. You make yourself the inclusion in the nation. You do not take yourself out of that nation. We, not they. We, member of Rwandan nation, for example. When this nation is criticized, I take it personally, which means I cannot tolerate somebody insulting my nation, for example. And the last item, it is important for me to think about myself as a member of his nation. Before I say you explain yourself as a member of a nation when you are in a group or with somebody else, but being alone, you also define yourself as a member of this nation. And this Likert scale can measure the degree of inclusion in that nation. Second, attitudes toward the country reflect the individual's general evaluation of the country and emotions related to the country and a negative or a positive continuum. The attitude measured may be general or domain specific, and it is very important to understand this also. General or specific, a scale used to measure general attitude towards the country may include items such as, I would rather be a citizen of this country than of any other country in the world. Second, there are some things about the country that make me ashamed of the country. Another also scale, the world would be a better place if people from other countries were more like the citizens of this country. Generally speaking, this country is a better country than most other countries. So what about domain specific? Here it was a general domain. What about domain specific? Domain specific attitude towards the country are measured with the items that related to individual sense of satisfaction and pride in various aspects of the country functioning. The example that we can give, the quality of the democratic government, economic achievements, and the social security system, as well as achievements in the field of science, technology, culture, and sport. The scales measuring general and domain-specific attitude are highly positively correlated. And I can give some comments on this domain-specific attitude. Some African people prefer to go to Western countries because they should find some satisfaction. They go there, but they stay attached to their nation. It's a quite irrational choice, but not only a feeling satisfaction. This is a material satisfaction, not moral satisfaction. Researchers argue that since holding a global positive attitude towards the country is the norm, it is more susceptible to the social desirability bias, whereas domain-specific attitudes are based on rational thoughts and therefore should be less susceptible to the social disability bias. National stereotypes reflect the individual's opinions and other members of the nation and members of the other nationalities. National stereotypes consist of two main factors. On the one hand, competence, and on the other hand, morality. The competency factor includes trends such as efficiency, intelligence, self-confidence, competitiveness, harmoniousness, etc. While the morality factor includes trends like honesty, tolerance, modesty, aggressiveness, selfishness, and rudeness. Some to attribute just some stereotypes because it knows that you come from any nation different to another. Before, I said that there is some behavior, feelings, and attitude towards the national identity, and this also will qualify somebody as a member of a nation. So what about this? Open behavior affected by national identity includes cultural practices and activities that demonstrate the individual's loyalty to the nation. Before I say the question of allegiances, in a nation you have obligations, but you have also duties. And here, in terms of behavior, feelings, you have also to have the loyalty to the nation. National identity is often associated with increased participation in ritualistic ceremonial national activities such as the parades, military parades. You know how we love national parades in our country, for example. Celebration of national holidays, singing a patriotic song in public, and flag waving. And we will see also the meaning of flag for any nation, for any state. Another important theoretical and practical question is how national identity corresponds with patriotic and nationalism. National identity, patriotism, and nationalism. We have to understand the differences as well as similarities between these three concepts. So, all of these three concepts deflate the individual's feelings toward the nation. You know, sometimes if you have not nation, because of different historical problems, you cannot express yourself, your nationalism or patriotism toward the nation. However, patriotism, here we are going to understand what is patriotism toward the two other concepts that we are going to explain after. Patriotism, in addition to a positive attitude towards and the feelings of love and pride related to the nation, also assume the readiness to sacrifice one's own interest for the welfare of the nation. If you are not able to sacrifice yourself to the nation, there is something lack for your patriotism. Also, patriotism assumes the readiness to the sacrifice, and in a contrary with the nationalism, nationalism is similar to patriotism in its positive affect regarding one's nation. However, unlike patriotism, nationalism assumes an uncritical acceptance of national history and refusal to consider national responsibility for injustice, for example, committed and negative attitude towards other nations. For nationalism, everything for your country is okay. And nationalism is also characterized by right-wing, what we call in Rwanda, uhezanguni, which are attitudes that support conservative leaders and policies, militarism, and anti-internationalism. You know, for example, for Italy and the Germany of Hitler and Mussolini, the nationalism was at a high degree, and it was a period of militarism. And the people, the member of these nations with this nationalism, do not tolerate it, did not tolerate it. The other countries, and they were internationalism. Finally, nationalists tended to define national identity based on objective criteria, such as the countries of both race, descent, and languages, while patriotism also considers subjective criteria critically views national history and allows ambiguity regarding national borders. The difference between nationalism and patriotism, and in the part of patriotism, there is openness for the member of the nations for any collaboration. You know, in several countries in Africa and abroad, the question of borders is very, very artificial. So a nationalist cannot tolerate this, and it has a close-cut border. Recent studies that tested the relationship between these three concepts revealed that national identity is strongly positively correlated with both patriotism and nationalism. National identity, patriotism, and nationalism were all associated with a strong positive affective orientation towards national symbols such as the flag, anthem, and with the respect for national leaders. After this, we are going to explain these national symbols, but before, I would like to propose some reading to understand by yourself the meaning of national identity and the three explaining the concept, which are identity, nation, and national identity. Here I propose this article, the article of Eugen Taitakovsky, National Identity. Taitakovsky is a professor in Tel Aviv University. And this article is online, and it will be posted on your e-learning platform. In this article, the concept of nation is defined, and the elements that compose what is called national identity are described and explained. You will enjoy this article according to the relationship between it and what I came to explain. And of course, this article will strengthen students and our audience in understanding the concept of national identity in comparison with modern institutions. When you speak about national identity, state, building, etc., you have also to think about modern institutions. So now let's see what are the national symbols. National symbols of state, of a nation. And here we will see national flag, we will see also anthem, and curiously we will also see what is a calendar and some state emblem. For the national flag, as I did for the other concept, I'm going to propose some historic evolution and the meaning. Flag has a long history. Objects that resemble flags were in use across the world in ancient times. In Europe, flags became widespread during the Crusades under the influence of Arab military banners. The development of later was stimulated by Islam iconoclasm. Because of the prohibition of figuration, Arabs had to rely on abstract patterns. In the Christian world, the first flags were called cross flags because they carried an image of the cross. Hope you remember the period of Crusades during Middle Age. In addition to Arab influences, the usage of cross flags was reinforced by the powerful legend of Constantine's dream of carrying the cross into the battle and his military standard, Constantine. It seems that the cross-centered flag practice set medieval states on a special track in linking the sacrifice of the classification to the redeeming death of ordinary citizen soldiers in modern times. Thus, in medieval Europe, flags were religious and found in a military context. For the first time, flags were flown outside the context of religion and warfare in early modern Europe during the age of sailing, when trading companies started to use banners to identify themselves at sea. So this is the time of the flags becoming lay, which means out of religious uses. Thus, the flag became associated with a secular, which means lay, a secular group of people which helped to pave the way of the modern usage as national artifacts. Moreover, in the early modern period, flag design, particularly in the Martin context, underwent the process of standardization, which also contributed to establishing a base of modern national flags from the region, from the commercial purposes, to modern states or modern nation. National flag indicating a sovereign nation is a relatively modern phenomenon. It was invented only during the American and French revolutions, which are very known in history. The latter, which means the French Revolution, in particular attached great importance to the creation of a new symbolic universe, legitimized the new political and social order, to propose something which is new, to differentiate with the ancient time, the ancient regime, as it was said at that time. That the French Revolution was full of symbolic conflict that played an important role in it. Sometimes they even acted as the driving force responsible for the revolution dynamic. It is worth underlining that the novelty of French and American flags lay primarily in the fact that for the first time in history, a banner had become associated with representing the sovereignty of the nation, not kings or ruling families. Even now, the kings and the ruling families have their own national symbols, while they are also national symbols. But for this republic nations, it is quite different. The flags are associated to the nation, not to the kings or ruling families. In fact, until the revolutions of the late 18th century, flags did not represent the peoples or nations, but rather kings and ruling families whose coat of arms would be at the center of the flag, which would be associated with armies and fleets, fluttering and forts and ships. According to revolutionist ideologies, we come back with the ideologies, it was not the king who constitutes the subject of sovereignty, but the nation. The difference between the king and the nation. With the revolutionists, the nation is more important than the king. So it is defined at least declaratively as a community of equal and free citizens. The flag acquired an inclusive and egalitarian meaning, open to all citizens, not just for the chosen and privileged groups that use it only in specific circumstances. From that time up to now, that flags are sacred. Why? Let's see also the evolution from the religion to civil or lay purposes. National flags are frequently treated as sacred, and they are also surrounded by a cult. They are treated with respect, reverence, and sometimes fear. Flags are a principal element of different national rituals that make up a type of civil religion, as envisaged in the 19th century by Jean-Jacques Rousseau. The cut of the flag also involves the creation of mythological narratives focused on the flag, which again is symptomatic of the special status of national flags. Thus, the beginnings of the flag are projected into the distant past, even if there is no continuity between the modern and the medieval meaning of the flag. The origin of flags in nationalist mythology dates back to antiquity. And here it is possible to compare Christianity believers' devotion to crucifix to the flag in Western civilization and actually in the current world. At the coming of Enlightenment, as we spoke about also, the bourgeoisie period, the significance of Christianity decreased, and its role as the sole dispository of legitimate violence was taken over by the national state. Both Christianity and the national state require disciplined adherents who are believers and citizen soldiers. In their view, the national flag acquired in the modern period a status similar to the crucifix in the Middle Age. You see the Middle Age and the evolution of the time with modern time, and the period of the philosophers and the thinkers like Jean-Jacques Rousseau, who is a part of an Enlightenment period. In this way, the flag indicates the willingness to die for your own country. You have to die for the flag, for your country. As the cross in the time carried by Jesus signifies his willingness to die for humanity. In the cases of both Christianity and nationalism, death is a sign of a new life. In the Bible, it is said, kugira ngo urubuto rwere rugomba. Jesus dies for the humanity, and any citizen and soldier and nationalist can die for his nation to make it survive. We saw what is a flag in general, and here we can try to understand about the significance, the sense of Rwandan flag. Ujya gutera uburezi arabwibanza.